Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our Wednesday 11 a.m. session. We had some really good questions last week. I hope I answered them properly. So whenever you have a question, bring it up, bring it on, text me, send it to me on Instagram, send it to me via whatever, WhatsApp. And curious about the questions for today. Let's get started.
So the first question we got is the positioning of the shoulders when doing weighted or non-weighted push-ups. Are the shoulders supposed to be neutral? There was kind of like a little bit of question there.
All right, so let's go through the basic positions of your shoulder. So when I talk about a shoulder, I think about three big bones. The three big bones are your big arm bone, that's the thingy over here. The second one is the shoulder blades. Those are your bony structures on the back of your or below your shoulder. And the third one is more or less the rib cage. So those are the three big bone structures we need to move somewhere with obviously muscles, or in my case, obviously muscles. All right. So there's three positions for your shoulder. First things first. The first position for your shoulder is when you retract your shoulder blades and your shoulder blades stay down, right? So in fancy terms, that means retraction and depression, right? So the shoulder blades move together and they're not gonna go up elevated, but they're gonna stay down depressed. They're not sad, they're just depressed geographically, all right? So that's the first position. The second position is the complete opposite. So your shoulder blades move out to the side. It's called fancy protraction, but still your shoulder blades still stay down. And the third position is, kind of sum it up, is a neutral position. So that's exactly the position in between, right? So retraction, protraction of the shoulder blades, retraction, protraction, and everything else in between is a neutral shoulder. That's going to be super important in like a second. Why is that important? Because at first, because the question is about the push-up, we're going to talk about positions below your shoulder. So that means I call it underhead. There's overhead positions, right? Everybody knows the word overhead, but very few people use the term underhead. So everything that's, let's say, below your shoulder level. Why is that important? Remember the three positions. Whenever your arm moves overhead, there's no retraction or protraction. It's possible, but not feasible for a loaded position. So whenever I talk about positions, I'm talking about positions that should be loaded and not unloaded, right? You can do whatever you want with unloaded shoulders. So what does it mean? Push-ups, pull-ups, body weight movements when no additional weight is attached, and more importantly, no weight is pushing top down on your spine, right? So whenever you move your arms overhead, that means your shoulder is gonna stay in the neutral position, right? So think about holding a barbell overhead. Still the same rules apply. So your shoulder needs to stay down, no elevation of the shoulder blades, and your shoulder blades stay in a neutral position. So whenever you have weight overhead, you should neither be protracted, shoulder blades together, or shoulder blades fully protracted. The perfect loaded position for your shoulder is neutral, the shoulder blades in between protraction and retraction, and shoulder blades down. Why is shoulder blades down so important? We're going to come back to the push-up in a second. Shoulder blades down is super important because whenever you elevate your shoulder blades, so you're going to go in that position, that means you're going to literally turn off your lats. Why? Your lats have an insertion, so they're attached to your shoulder blade. Whenever you move your shoulders up, you're going to elongate the lat and it cannot contract anymore. So all of the tension is going to go here towards your neck, your upper traps, and that kind of stuff. That works, kind of, but not for a very long time. And especially your traps are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and your lats are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's the recipe for shoulder pain or less strength in your shoulder. So that was everything overhead. Underhead, coming back to the push-up. Underhead means you can go into loaded positions, retracted, protracted, or neutral. So what is a push-up? Push-up is literally starting from the ground. So in that position, your shoulder blades are like this, right? So retracted. They're going to go together. Shoulder blades move in. That's the top position of your push-up, right? Again, shoulder blades are going to stay down even in that position. When you push up, so your finishing position, the top of a push-up is shoulder protraction. So a push-up is literally going from shoulder retraction at the bottom to shoulder protraction at the top, right? And that is totally fine for unweighted, unloaded body weight movements, right? Like a push-up. So your shoulder moves through the full range of motion. That's it. That's a push-up, right? Whenever the weight gets heavier, you have to be more precise, because the question was about the push-up and the bench press, right?
Exactly. It was,
Yeah.
there is like a similarity between the two concerning the shoulder position.
Okay, so very simply speaking, I know it's a little bit more maybe too oversimplified, but to get the point, the less weight it's going to be on your body, the more you can move in between those positions, right? And the more weight is on your body, like in a bench press, the less or zero movement needs to happen in your shoulder. So what does that mean? Push up, full retraction to full protraction, right? Bench press, you're going to start retracted at the bottom of your bench, and you're going to stay retracted while pushing up. Why is the difference so important? In a push-up, not much weight on your body, so you can move freely within the ranges with your shoulder blades staying down. That's the only thing we're going to care about. So that's all we need, no progression for a push-up if your shoulder blades stay down, right? And elevation of the arms, so doing like more of an incline push-up, never on your knees, never ever do push-up on your knees. I'll explain in a second why. You can incline the push-up so it gets easier if the shoulder blades start to do this while doing a push-up. That's the only thing we care about, right? And hand release, because you have to release the tension and actually teach your triceps to press instead of your pecs. Yes, I said it out loud. The push-up should be a triceps exercise and not a pec exercise. If we have some time today, we can go into that. In a bench press, you have to lock your shoulders with and your shoulder blades with the shoulder blades retracted. Why? Once your shoulder starts moving under load, that means muscles are attached with tendons to bones. That means as soon as a bone starts moving, that means a position is changing in your shoulder under heavy load. That means the muscle is already stretched and loaded, and now all of a sudden a bone starts to move. That puts tremendous pressure, firstly on the tendon, and secondly on the muscle itself. So think about locking that position, and literally the only thing that's going to move in a bench press is your arm, right? That's why it's so devastating for your shoulder if this happens while being loaded heavily. Again, I'm talking about heavily loaded shoulders. In a push-up, it's not that important. Make sense?
It makes sense, and I have a question to kind of like open up the loop and at kind of like another perspective. What is when you use a sandbag? For instance, when you do like floor presses with a sandbag, am I mistaken that there is a bit of a difference in comparison to the bench press, or am I completely off the?
Yes. So that's why we have a movement hierarchy for pressing. So we start with a hand release push-up, and then we're going to move on to the sandbag and dumbbells. And at the end of this road, at the end of this journey, is the barbell bench press. So why? Because the dumbbell and the sandbag are gonna be not so hard on your shoulder. First and foremost, because you cannot use as much weight as on the barbell. That's the most important one, right? So it's not as important to lock your shoulders when you're dumbbell or sandbag press. Still, we wanna train and learn tension with position. So that means we want to lock in a position no matter what equipment we're using. It's less dangerous, but you should still know what you're going to do. The more important thing is tension with position means the tension is going to be in your lats, holding your shoulder in place. And the tension while you're pressing is going to be in your triceps, not in your pecs, right? Maybe we'll go a little bit into this because I see this a lot. People using the bench press, dumbbell presses, or whatever, push-ups for developing their chest or pressing. This could not be further from the truth. The main function of your pec in a pressing motion is stabilizing your shoulder. So whatever your pec, when it's stretched to the bottom position, whatever your position of your pec is, it is already fully stretched, right? So all the fibers are stretched out to the side. Good. So what happens if you want to use your pec now to press? So you're already stretched. Now you're all of a sudden you're shortening it again. That's not a good concept for creating more tension. So what I want you to do is get the shoulder position in, get your pec on full tension, and leave them there to stabilize, right? The shoulder position stays the same, pec is full on tension. So the only thing that should move, wait now, is your arm. And what's pressing in your arm? That thingy behind your back, or the backside of your arm rather, is your triceps. And that's where a lot of people are struggling with pressing power, me included, is not being able to use the triceps, but either using the pecs, pressing like this, or even worse, like me, a long time ago, using your shoulder, like the delts, to press weight up. And it's going to give you big watermelons on your shoulders, but also a lot of achiness in your shoulder joint. That was my answer for the first question.
Toby, do you have any question concerning that whole aspect? Okay, no. The second question was, someone is very happy about the new shirt. And the second question was concerning the progression of a hand release push-up. Do we use bands, or do we and also the whole aspect of range of motion? How do we progress a hand release push-up?
Okay, so first things first. So the whole point of a hand release push-up is unlearning your shoulder and your pecs to press, and learning your triceps to press from the bottom up, however you want to call it, right? So that's the main point. Plus, that's the tension side. Position side is, as we talked about before, is, okay, I want to make sure that my shoulder blades move from this position to that position. So bottom position going out to the top position without my shoulders shrugging, so without my shoulder blades rising up, right? So that's the whole point. Tension in your triceps to press, tension in your pecs and your lats to stabilize, and the positions that I just mentioned. Most people can do a hand release push-up, maybe not as we would like to see it. So let me give you an example. In our gym, everybody does hand release push-ups, even the quote-unquote weakest ones. Why? Because the only thing I'm focusing on in a push-up is the shoulder. If I see somebody doing a hand release push-up and there is something happening in like the hips or in the core, they can't fully control it, that's totally fine. I don't care. I care about teaching the shoulder position and the shoulder tension with a push-up. If there's kind of a little bit of a snake movement going on while doing hand release push-ups, that's totally fine. Like it's still a shoulder exercise for the triceps. So I don't care. There's nothing gonna happen. There's no load on your spine. There's no load on your hips. Like, what's the point? There's zero risk in doing push-ups like this. The downside of doing push-ups on your knees is exactly this. So when you kind of in that awkward knee on the ground push-up position, the first thing that happens is this, right? Especially with weaker people, they start to rise their shoulders, do like half push-ups. That's not the point of a push-up. The point is range of motion, knowing what position to be in, and work full range of motion. And the second part is the tension part. Okay, I want to have the triceps to press, to produce tension. I want the pec and the lats to stabilize. That's the whole point about doing push-ups. And if you're doing push-ups on your knees, stop, doing push-ups on your knees. Do full hand release push-ups. Make sure you're following the tension with position rules. And I don't care about your snake movement in your core and in your hips. I don't care. This is about teaching your shoulder and not your hips and your core. We'll do that with different exercises, obviously.
And I'm wondering, for extremely weak people, do you also consider putting them, like, for instance, having their hands put up on a bench, or being just higher but not going down on their knees? Is that an option, or are you more like a fan of do them on the floor and maybe even have a bit of snake motion, or is there like a difference?
Okay, so here's the thing about progressions and regressions. I don't like them if they don't make you stronger. So I have yet to see somebody that cannot do a single push-up. One. All I need is one push-up. I don't need 10 in a row. I don't need 15. I don't need 20 in a row. All I need is one push-up. One hand release push-up. I've yet to see a person that cannot do one hand release push-up. All right. We can do 20 sets of one hand release push-ups. That's my way of doing it. You don't have to like 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 12, or one set of 20. I don't care. I want to get 20 hand release push-ups in. And if it takes us 10 minutes, I'm good. One push-up, take a break. One push-up, take a break. And just make sure you're going to coach it with tension, know what tension to produce, and what position needs to be achieved. That's all I care about.
And
that actually makes real fucking sense what I just said. Now we can cut this out.
And what about the width of your hand position or your leg position? How can you play with that, or is that not in the chat at all?
Okay, so everybody knows like if you use like a diamond grip on the ground, like the further you go in, the narrower you go, the more your triceps has to work. So there's a little bit of a threshold of balance needed here. So what does that mean? Ideally, I want to see you go as narrow as possible, but that's even more challenging. So let's just start in a hand width position that gives me one push-up. That's my best answer. So whatever you have to do in terms of width of your hands, I'm okay as long as you can do 20 sets of one hand release push-up, right? And once we're there, we can progress you. So that means if you can do 20 sets of one rep, awesome. We'll try 18 times one next time. And the 19th and the 20th set, we're gonna try to go a little bit narrow, right? A little bit narrow. Maybe it's the first or the second one because it's more taxing, or it's more exhausting, or more strength is needed. So we're gonna try 1 or 2 sets in the beginning with a narrow grip, and the rest we're gonna stay as we did last time. So that's how I see progression, true progression of a push-up, coaching it with tension with position, and not just tension or just position.
Okay, makes sense. Toby, do you have any questions? No. Silent man in the office.
All right.
Yeah.
Good call. Good questions. Bring them on. Bring some more questions next week, and I'll see you on the next call.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.